I want to describe something to you. No food, no medication, no water, not a sip, not a bite. From the moment the sun rises until the moment it sets. No sharp words, no arguments. Continuously guarding your eyes, continuously guarding your tongue, and guarding your heart. Do this every single day for 30 days. Now be honest with yourself. What's your reaction? Is it fascination? Is it discomfort? Is it a quiet, private thought that says, I could never do that? Hold that reaction, because that reaction, whatever it is exactly where I would like to begin. My name is Shariq Ghani, and I'm a Muslim. I've been invited here today not to convert anyone, not to debate anyone, but to do something far more simple and very rare. I've been invited to be honest with you about what my faith looks like from the inside. So let me start with what Ramadan actually is, because that's what people mostly know about it on the surface. Yes, we fast. Yes, we abstain from food and drink during the daylight hours through the entire month of Ramadan, the ninth month on the Islamic lunar calendar. That's the part that most people already know. But here's what doesn't make the headlines. Ramadan isn't primarily about hunger. I would say it really isn't about hunger at all. The hunger is the methodology, it's not the message. Fasting is just an empty container, and what we're meant to fill the container with, what the entire month is actually meant to produce, is clarity. Spiritual clarity, moral clarity. Clarity about who you are when everything you normally use to distract yourself is stripped away. And that, I would argue, is something every person in this room, regardless of your faith, hungers for deeply, even if you've never named it. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, whoever fasts during Ramadan, whoever fasts during the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith and hoping for its reward from God, then all of his past sins will be forgiven. I'll say it again. Whoever fasts during the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith and hoping for its reward from God, then all of his past sins will be forgiven. I want you to notice what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't say. He didn't say whoever fasts perfectly, whoever fasts without stumbling and tripping over themselves, whoever fasts without doubt or without fatigue, or even a moment of weakness from pangs of hunger. It says, whoever fasts with sincerity, whoever shows up day after day with intention, sincerity, that's the currency of Ramadan. Let me tell you about Nadia. Nadia is a woman that I know. By her own description, she wasn't really a very spiritual person. She prayed when she remembered to. She fasted because her family fasted. That's just how she grew up. Because her mother had fasted. Because her grandparents had fasted. Because her brothers and sisters. Because her community fasted. So she did something that other people did. The faith, she told me, Islam for her always felt like furniture. It was present, it was familiar, it was there. It was something that you sit on, something that you get off from, something that you dust off every now and then. It wasn't something very remarkable to her. Then one Ramadan, when she was 34 years old, on the 11th day of Ramadan, something changed. She was sitting at her desk at work, and when she reached, automatically, while she was working, she reached for her coffee mug without thinking, and it wasn't there. It was such a small thing, but in that moment she became aware. She realized for the first time, really became aware of how many times a day she reaches for something. Coffee, her phone, a snack, a distraction, a comfort, anything to fill the void of quiet before the quiet became uncomfortable. She sat with that empty space where the coffee mug should have been. And in that silence, she said, she heard herself for the first time in years. That's what Ramadan does. That's what it's designed to do. We live, most of us, Muslims, Christians, Jews, all people of faith, in a state of constant low-grade noise. We're always reaching, we're always filling, we're always managing the silence before it can communicate something we aren't ready to hear. Ramadan forcibly removes the reach, and in the space that remains, in the hunger, the pains of hunger, the thirst, the strange clarity of a body that has nothing left to process, because at that present moment, something rises to the surface. The question you've been avoiding, the apology you owe, the gratitude you've forgotten, the version of yourself you were always meant to become rises to the top when you stop reaching. It rises because there's nothing left to drown it out. In the Quran God says, "O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting, as it was decreed upon those before you, so that you may become righteous." As it was decreed upon those before you. This verse was not written just for a Muslim audience alone. It was written as a reminder of something older, something shared. The practice of fasting, of voluntary deprivation for the sake of your spirituality, for gain. It's not something that began with Islam. Moses fasted for 40 days on Mount Sinai. Jesus fasted for 40 days in the wilderness. David fasted. The early church fasted. We know about the desert fathers who fasted until their bodies became so thin as reeds and their prayers became as sharp as arrows. Fasting isn't a Muslim invention. It's a human experience. It's something that's ancient and universal. But there's something that happens to you physically around day 3 or day 4 of fasting, when the headaches passes, when the hangriness or the irritability softens, and your relationship with hunger, which is, in the beginning, it feels like something really urgent. It feels as if it's demanding that feeling of hunger. It begins to shift and it begins to change. You realize that that feeling of hunger, it's not an emergency. I know that sounds obvious, but I promise you, it isn't until you've lived it. We have, most of us, even Muslims who don't fast the other months of the year, we never allow hunger to complete its sentence. We never allow hunger to complete its sentence. We interrupt it constantly before it can finish what it's trying to say. The moment we feel hunger, we answer it immediately, reflexively. Popcorn, a snack, a cup of coffee, a light bite at McDonald's. Immediately, reflexively, we answer it the way we answer our text message notifications. Ramadan teaches you to let hunger speak, finish its sentence, let it finish its thought. And what it says once you stop flinching is this: you're not as fragile as you think. You're not really as dependent as you think you are. You're not really that controlled by your appetite. And if that's true of physical hunger, what else might it be true of? What other appetites have we all been treating as emergencies that really aren't emergencies? The appetite for approval, the appetite for control, the appetite for certainty, the appetite for comfort in every form: digital, chemical, relational, financial. What would happen if for just one time you let that appetite go unanswered long enough to hear what it's really saying, to hear what's underneath? That's the question that Ramadan asks every Muslim every single year for 30 days. And I'm asking it to you today. What happens if you let that appetite go unanswered and you let it finish its thought? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Every good deed of the son of Adam will be multiplied, a good deed receiving a 10-fold to 700-fold reward." God said fasting is the exception. For it is for me, and I will reward it. The person leaves his desire and his food for my sake. Fasting is for me. That's what God says to us in the Quran. Fasting is for me. Of all the things that I could say to you today, that phrase is the one that I'd love for you to take home with. Fasting is for me. Every other act of worship has a visible dimension. People can see you praying. Charity can be counted. Pilgrimage can be photographed and recorded through selfies. But fasting? Fasting's invisible. No one can verify your fast. No one knows if you cheated or not. You could eat in private. You could drink in your car. Not your family, not your community, not the clergy. No one would ever know. The only reason not to break your fast or to cheat in the middle of the day with one French fry or a drop of water or one crumb of a cookie is because you actually believe someone is watching. The fast then is the most honest thing a believer can do. It's an act of worship that exists entirely in the unseen, for the unseen, between yourself and the divine, witnessed by no one else. I think that's something that's worth sitting with. Whatever your faith, whatever your tradition, the question of whether you would live your life differently if no one was watching. Would you live your life differently if no one was watching? Whether your devotion to a higher power has an audience problem. Ramadan answers that question 30 days at a time. Let me tell you about iftar. Iftar is the meal that breaks the fast every evening. When the sun goes down, the fast ends, and that's when the community gathers to eat. I've sat at many iftar tables around the country, in my parents' home, in mosques, in the homes of strangers who have become family, in the space of a single meal. I've broken fast with people whose names I couldn't pronounce and whose languages I could never speak. And I want to tell you what every single one of those tables feels like. Every single one of those tables feels like relief. It feels like laughter. They feel like the particular joy that only exists on the other side of sacrifice, when you walk through that threshold. It's the kind of joy that you can't fake, you can't manufacture it, you can't purchase it, you can't scroll your way to it. It's the type of dopamine hit that comes after a full day of doing an invisible form of worship for the sake of God. And the dates, the small date fruit, it always comes first, following the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Then after the date comes the water and then the meal. And there's something about that tiny little brown or blackish date, that single small thing after an entire day of nothing, tastes like a word from God, sitting right there in the center of the table in an unsuspecting bowl that everyone reaches to a minute or a few seconds before the sun starts to set. I've never really tasted anything that tastes as good as that date. Fogo de chao, an amazing buffet. Going to McCormick and Schmick's after a long day. It's proof, that small date, it's proof that the day was worth it. That the discipline, that invisible form of worship, it held, that the faith was real. Every Muslim at the table that day has earned that date, and everyone knows it. And the knowing that we've earned it, that is a sacred moment. I say this to you not as a curiosity of another culture, not as anthropologists sitting in the pews, but as an invitation. When did each of you last earn your meal? Not because you completed an amazing project or you planted all the azaleas in the garden. Not in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense. When did you last deprive yourself of something, not because you had to, but because you believe deprivation was itself the point. Sacrifice, when did sacrifice last make your joy taste different? When was the last time? In the Quran, God says to us, "And when my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near." When my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near, I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. This particular verse sits in the middle of all the passages about Ramadan in the Quran. It's right there, smack in the middle. God is going in one direction, he pauses, he steps aside, and he goes in an entirely different direction as a distraction, and then continues on about the passages of Ramadan. Its placement is extraordinary. God is giving his people the rules of how we must fast, why we must fast, how the people who came before us fasted, and then right there, smack in the middle, he pauses to say, I am near. When you are fasting, I am near. Not I am watching, not I am judging, not I'm keeping score and tabs on how good you're actually fasting. He just says, I am near, and I answer when you call. Because the entire discipline of Ramadan, the hunger, the thirst, the restraint, the long days, and especially Ramadan in the summer, the very long days, they're ultimately designed to produce one thing, one outcome at the end of Ramadan. Not performance, not piety for its own sake, but proximity. In the Arabic, we call it taqwa. Proximity. Proximity to God, nearness to God, but also nearness to yourself and nearness to those around you. The fast, when you fast, it strips everything away. It strips the distance that we create for ourselves, the barriers and the hurdles that we create for ourselves. And in the closeness that remains, the voice of God becomes audible. And I believe and I know that every person in this room, not through Ramadan necessarily, but through something, through whatever practice of holy deprivation each of you have, you feel this. The question is whether you are willing to be hungry enough to hear it. I want to close with this. I am a Muslim. And when I told my wife and a few of my friends about this, they said that this is a very unusual thing that you're preaching on a Sunday. And I understand that, and I'm very grateful for it. Because what I've come to believe after 30-something years of fasting and praying and sitting with the questions that won't leave me alone and persistently chase me around day to day, month to month, year to year, is that the deepest hunger in a human being, our hunger, our thirst, it's not very complicated. These are simple hungers. It's a hunger to be known. It's a hunger to be close to something true. It's a hunger to find love. It's a hunger to live a life that means something more than just our comforts. Muslims feel that hunger. People of all faith feel that hunger. Ramadan is Islam's answer to that hunger. 30 days of structured, communal, ancient, and deeply personal practice that says one thing: stop reaching, stop filling, stop managing the silence and your thoughts, and just listen. You might not fast from sunrise to sunset, and that's not what I'm asking you to do. But I am asking you, as a fellow traveler in this world that's very loud and very fast and very determined to keep you from hearing yourself think with all of the distractions it fills in your pockets and in your car, to consider the questions. What are you reaching for that you don't actually need? What silence are you managing? And what might you hear? What would change if you just, for a moment, resisted and stopped? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today. And whether you practice or not, I hope this Ramadan is blessed for all of us. Thank you very much.